The Laura Ingraham Show.
On Hannity, did I seem that way, Drew, or no? Did I seem like I was...
No, you seemed like you were very sarcastic and joking now. I would not have taken you seriously,
yeah,
but I know you a little better than the average person.
Drew's been with me when we've been throwing back alcohol.
We've actually
believe
been
me.
doing
yeah,
this.
when we
sometimes
know.
It's hard for me to keep up with.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So no, but I was in such a great mood last night. This was Trump. First of all, Trump looks like he's reverse aging in office. See, most people look like he lost a little weight, absolutely lost weight. The stress of the job will do that. You either can be a stress eater or a stress starver, and I think he's starving himself. It's only like 3 supersized fries a day now. He used to have 5 supersized fries. No, I'm just kidding. But he likes a lot of junk food. So Trump looked great. He was very presidential. And don't say, oh, you say that like you're surprised. Look, he knows how to produce stuff. That was a well-produced event last night. It was humble. It was substantive, and it was to the point. This is my selection. I told you I was going to select from this list. They're all great people on the list. And I want to introduce Neil Gorsuch. He came, he said a few words, and that was it. And that was the moment that we have been waiting for. It's the beginning of the Trump court. It's the first step in the Trump court. We have a lot of justices who, frankly, need to retire. We have a lot of justices who have been there for decades or who are, they're frankly barely hanging on. And Trump will probably have 3 picks on the court. He could have 4, but he'll probably have 3. That's what I'm going to say, including Gorsuch. And I said this last night, and the Twitterverse is going crazy because I said I think within 4 months he's going to have 3 to 4 months he'll have another nomination. And everyone's jumping to the conclusion that I was talking about Justice Thomas. Here, let me disabuse you of that notion. I was not talking about Justice Thomas. Because they know that, I've known Thomas for 30 years. Actually, they say I've known Thomas for 30 years. I think I've known him for 40 years. No, not 40 years. Hold on. No, not 40 years. Yeah, I've known him for 30 years. I'm really aging myself. Well, I've known him for, almost 30 years. Yeah, I'm not that old. Jeez. By the way, I have a stress fracture on my ankle. What is this show? Now this is like Cocoon radio show. When I talk about my ailments. How many of you have had stress fractures? Have you ever had a stress fracture? Have you had one, James?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but remember when I was on crutches for a few months, that was a stress fracture in my knee, but it wasn't necessarily from running or anything. I had just fallen through the cement and fallen over, and it cracked my knee that way, and it was painful. I thought I had done something worse, but it was just
was it because of a difficult pregnancy or no? I'm just teasing, but I'm telling you something. It hurts. It's called a hairline fracture, a stress fracture. And here's the thing you're not supposed to do in a stress fracture. Keep stressing it. I can run through the pain. I'm like tweeting out all my photos on the track. I can run through it, do the sprints, it's brutal. So I got to get one of those goofy boots. But I digress. If you've gotten a stress fracture, I want to hear about your story. Keep it brief, okay? Because there's a lot of stress in Washington right now. I have to de-stress with my ankle, my heel. It's actually the bottom of the heel. And the doctor I saw the other day said, tell me if this hurts. My head almost went through the ceiling. He squeezed around my Achilles tendon. Oh, it's like, I can take a lot of pain. I say, hey, doc, I don't need another injury from the doctor's visit, okay? So I want to hear from you. If you've had a stress or a hairline fracture, what did you do to make it better? And is it really true that you have to rest it for 6 to 8 weeks? Because I don't do well on rest at all. I don't do well on wearing one of those goofy boots. When I was in a cast starting law school, I was in an actual hard cast because I ripped the ligaments in my ankle from softball. And I actually played third base in a full leg cast. I could still whip that ball to first too. I would still do the lean over and whip it into first base. And that's when Lee Habib, who was my old producer, Lee Habib said, I knew you were serious at that point. I knew it was like, I wasn't going to mess with you. So we'll talk about medical calamities, but most importantly, we were heartened to hear Nancy Pelosi's, overall reaction to the moment.
It's a very hostile appointment. If you breathe air, drink water, eat food, take medicine, or in any other way interact with the courts, this is a very bad decision.
I don't even understand. What was she mentioning in there? She had for clean water. What, did he? No. What else did she say? Did she something? She said something about water and did she talk about animal rights and Neil Gorsuch? What is she saying?
If you breathe air, drink water, eat food, take medicine, or in any other way interact with the courts, this is a very bad decision.
At this point, you just have to scratch your head and you have to say, okay, Nancy, he was confirmed by voice acclamation. They didn't even have to have an actual vote. It was like, yeah, everyone just said, okay, he's fine. And that was, by the way, that was in July of 2006. Okay. And when he was off the bench in 2006, he published this book called The Future of Assisted Suicide and Euthanasia. And he criticized the practice, defending the intrinsic value of human life. Did he publish that before he was nominated to the Court of Appeals? Was it 2006 before his appointment? Drew, it must have been. Just check that. I'm almost positive. But you see, in my pain of my stress fracture, my memory might not be working so well. Okay, so that's a really good sign, in my view, about Neil Gorsuch. He defended the intrinsic value of human life. You cannot deprive another of his or her right to life, even when life is inconvenient. But the man was confirmed by a unanimous voice vote. So what is at that point? Thank you for my latte, Drew. What does old Nancy Pelosi, who was last heard telling a congressman, tell him you're Muslim? Can you hear that in the audio that we have from that botched microphone deal the other day at the court? Well, I'll talk about that later because someone texted me the video and somehow I missed that. I know I'm doing stream of consciousness, but just stay with me. There's a reason I'm saying this. Nancy Pelosi 2 nights ago at the court was just at a loss to get the whole, the AP system going. Is that right? The AP, is that what you call it? AV, audio visual aid, whatever. The microphone going. And so it was an embarrassing moment.
Can you hear now? No, that doesn't do any good. Does this work better? No.
No, it doesn't.
As staff, sound people.
That still is my favorite. Sound people. So anyway, then there was a congressman, not Keith Ellison, but the other Muslim congressman. No, it wasn't Cory Booker. Cory Booker's not Muslim. It was another congressman who got up. God, you're making Cory Booker Muslim on us, Drew. It was the other Muslim congressman. There are 2 Muslim congressmen, Ellison from Minnesota, and then there's another who spoke right after Pelosi. So he's starting to speak. Again, they're not sure whether the microphone is working, and you actually can hear her, which I missed the first time I heard it. That's all over Twitter. Who is it?
You're thinking of Andre Carson from Indiana. We actually have him as well from yesterday. We just didn't get to his audio, but he was ridiculous.
Oh, no, he was ridiculous.
Xenophobic.
She's starting to speak.
Yes.
He's starting to speak, and Nancy Pelosi says, tell him you're Muslim.
Yeah, the only reason I thought that you were saying that is because she actually, at one point in time, we didn't play it yesterday just because you can't hear it on radio, where she pushes Cory Booker out of the way. That's why I thought you were talking about Cory Booker, so I apologize.
I'm trying to teach my daughter how to box people out in basketball because she's getting into basketball. So I'm trying to teach her the pick and roll.
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach her a good pick and roll move. But that was Pelosi might as well be, she might as well be coaching high school basketball because she was blocking out that Cory Booker.
Well, she goes even further on our Supreme Court pick if we want to go to.
Okay, she goes even bad. Okay, let's listen.
What saddens me the most as a mom and a grandmother, though, is his hostility toward children in school, children with autism. He has ruled that they don't have the same rights under the IDEA, the children, that they could reach their intellectual and social advancement under the law. He has said that doesn't apply to them.
She doesn't. The woman is round the bend, as my surrogate dad, Chuck Carlson, would say. She's round the bend. Okay, so you thought they were going to stop at racist, sexist, misogynist, xenophobic, Islamophobic. Now They're against autistic children. The only people who are criticizing or bringing up autism in a negative way are the liberals who are casting aspersions or saying things about Barron Trump. Those are the only people who are despicable on the issue of autism or any child on the spectrum of autism. So don't talk about that. That is but anyone who gets an inkling about, the Democrats are going to work with Trump on the nomination. They're going to be so worried because these Democrats who voted for him when he was voted on for the appellate court, they're in tough districts, or they're in states that Trump won. How many of you actually think, listening to Pelosi, how many of you think these people like Claire McCaskill are going to vote for Gorsuch? I'd be surprised if Claire McCaskill and Bob Casey voted for Gorsuch. Maybe they will. But they all coordinate on this stuff. Pelosi is coordinating with the Senate on the anti-Gorsuch message. They want to raise a lot of money on Gorsuch, and they want to tar and feather him. And now he's against autistic children. This is a level of mental depravity that I didn't even think San Fran Grand Nan was capable of. I used to call her San Fran Grand Nan. But this is now just despicable. Doesn't even apply to this. That is just it's so endearing. It's inspiring. I love Maureen. So I love that moment. That was for me and for all of us of a certain age who had the great privilege of working alongside Justice Scalia and getting to know him throughout the Reagan administration and then at his time in the Supreme Court. I got teared up when I saw that, because I remember Justice Scalia, like on a Saturday afternoon, on his hands and knees on the floor of his chambers, like looking through a filing cabinet, trying to find a particular file. I was walking by the chambers, and I was popping in to say hi to him. I said, "Justice, do you need help on that?" He's like, "Damn, I can't find this. I'm trying to find this resume of a clerk I was supposed to interview." And I said, "Let me help you." And he's like, "I can do it myself." No, he was hilarious. He just had one of those senses. He's just a great guy. And he was so smart and so gracious, and we miss him so much. But Neil Gorsuch, certainly a lot of pressure on him. A lot of pressure on him to follow in the tradition of Antonin Scalia. No one will replace Antonin Scalia. No one can. But to follow in his legal tradition of excellence and his jurisprudential outlook, which is he was a textualist. He didn't believe the judges to legislate from the bench, and he didn't believe in reading rights into the Constitution that the framers never intended.
Justice Scalia was a lion of the law. Agree or disagree with him, all of his colleagues on the bench cherish his wisdom and his humor. And like them, I miss him.
Josh in Nebraska. Joshy, go ahead. Line one. Josh is skeptical already. I love it. Go ahead.
Laura, I'm just, we've been fired up before about these Supreme Court picks from Republican presidents, and, the most recent case being Roberts and some of the decisions that he's had. And I was really excited this morning to just call in and kind of see, this is kind of your turf, and I just kind of want to get your read on the whole thing. Is this going to blow up again on us in 3 or 4 years?
Well, obviously, I am. I'm always of the mindset that we'll see. I certainly think his book about euthanasia and his statement about the sanctity of life in that book, the deprivation of life, to me that speaks volumes about what he thinks about the due process clause, the fake reading into the Constitution of the right to abort a child, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. But I think you're right we'll wait and see. But we certainly hope for the best, and we pray for him and his family and for wisdom. I appreciate that question, Josh. I can't really give you a clear answer other than I'm hoping just as much as you are, and I'm optimistic. An undying bond that we both clerked for the esteemed Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, and she joins us now. Carrie, my friend, I'm so glad you're with us. How are you?
Great to be here, Laura.
Let's talk about Neil Gorsuch. We've heard a lot from conservatives about him. What is, in your mind, the most important quality for a judicial nominee coming from the Republican side of the aisle?
Well, it's exactly the quality that Judge Gorsuch shows, which is commitment to applying the law as written by its text, applying the Constitution according to its text as originally understood by the people who adopted it. That's something, and this commitment to the rule of law, that I'm so excited that Judge Gorsuch shares. He shares it with Justice Scalia, and he shares it with Justice Thomas, who we, of course, admire so much. I'm just so thrilled that he'll be the person to fill the next seat of the Supreme Court.
All right, speak up, because I think you're on a cell phone, Carrie, which we look down upon on the Laura Ingraham Show because of the problems. But let's talk about the ads that you will be running. And where you're going to be running these ads and the website, and tell us about that.
Yeah, so our website is confirmgorsuch.com. It's got everything. You got a great video of his life, information about his biography. It's got resources for you, a lot of facts about him and his legal opinions and his philosophy. We are running ads nationwide, but particularly targeting 10 states that went for Trump, but who have Democratic senators who are up for re-election in 2018. We know that they're going to have a tough choice to make. They have to decide, are they going to vote for what the constituents chose, that Donald Trump should choose the next Supreme Court justice? Or are they going to lock arms with Chuck Schumer? Are they going to try to block this nominee for 4, 8, however many years it takes them to get another Democrat in the White House? I think that would be political suicide, and we want to make sure that the constituents of those senators understand that.
Well, I think that in the end, Democrats are going to have to decide, do they want to go, full bore against Gorsuch? Do they want to preserve their opportunity to hold their Senate seats in places like Montana with John Tester, Claire McCaskill, of course, Bob Casey in Pennsylvania? They all allowed him to be confirmed. It was a voice vote, and no one objected to him. And pretty much nothing's happened in his jurisprudence that would indicate that he's anything different than the way he was when he was being considered for the appellate court. So, by the way, Dick Durbin was asked about this, about the fact that the Senate had already confirmed him for his appellate seat. Let's listen.
Do I have it right that you voted aye in the voice vote in 2006 when Gorsuch was up for the federal appeals court?
Good question, Willie, and I just don't remember, to be honest with you. On voice votes, you don't make much of a note on it, and it's possible. I don't believe there was a lot of controversy surrounding it.
So he doesn't remember now, Carrie.
Well, the nice thing is Durbin is one of the 7 senators already on record, Democrats saying they don't think you should be filibustered. So they obviously decided they don't want to call McConnell's bluff. I think they know that there's no way that Republicans would allow them to filibuster someone indefinitely for this seat. So that's encouraging. But honestly, Gorsuch is so highly qualified. He got unanimously well qualified for his appellate seat from the ABA. This is a liberal organization that is consistently downgrades conservative judicial nominees. It's unassailable record. I mean, this guy is so bright, Ivy League.
Well, so is John Roberts. I'm going to play devil's advocate, Carrie. So is John Roberts.
That's true.
John had a great.
He
had a great background. Everyone was saying how great he was. Everyone was coming on my show and television. John Roberts, and John Roberts ended up writing one of the most disastrous legal opinions I think of the last 25 years.
I think that's true, but Gorsuch has more than a decade on the court, and he has done what Roberts hadn't done, which is sit on cases where he knows there's a big political valence. He knows that coming out the right way under most presidents, President Trump was, maybe most presidents, in Republican presidents, that would mean you don't get the Supreme Court nomination. That's like his decisions in Hobby Lobby, in the Little Sisters of the Poor case. He has come to the right conclusion, and he has been very outspoken. When he was talking after Justice Scalia's death, he went on and on about this great judicial philosophy. We look at the law as it is. We look at the text and the structure and the history. You don't bring your politics in. That's something that I think John Roberts was very smooth and looked like he had qualifications on paper, but he hadn't really been tested under fire. Gorsuch has, and so I'm very hopeful. Obviously, you can't guarantee anything, but I think he is at the best guarantee we have that this seat is going to be someone in the mold of Justice Scalia.
And let me say this: if Gorsuch ends up doing a Casey versus Planned Parenthood or like Justice Kennedy thing, then I think it'd be pitchforks at the Supreme Court at this point. I mean, the Republicans just cannot screw up another nomination; they just can't do it. So I'm very optimistic about Neil Gorsuch. I think he He has the humility and the seriousness and approach that I think is part of the judicial temperament we want. And he doesn't seem to be the type of person who is going to be bending over backwards to please the New York Times editorial board or to fit into the cocktail circuit in Washington, D.C. I'm certainly hoping not, because that is the kind of creeping, evolutionary thinking that got into the head, I think, of some of these other justices.
It's very different. He has gone out of his way. In one case, I thought it was so funny. He even concurred in his own opinion to make the point, to make an added point of a particularly long, impressive series on administrative law. He thinks courts actually have to stand up to these agencies that are running rampant and rewriting the law left and right. That's exciting to me because it sounds a lot more like Thomas than Scalia. So I think there's a lot of reason to think this guy's going to be even better, especially on those issues of the constitutional structure and not letting the unelected bureaucrats run our country instead of our elected representatives. So I'm very optimistic, and I'm really excited to see what he'll do on the court.
A final question. There was some hope among conservative legal scholars and conservative thinkers that since everything's at a fever pitch anyway, and the Democrats are going to oppose Trump pretty much at every turn, why not go for a Bill Pryor in Alabama? Why not go for him? He's more of a sure thing than Neil Gorsuch, and he's proven his bona fides time and again as well. Why do you think ultimately they didn't go with Pryor? They just didn't want that much of a fight?
Well, I agree. I think Pryor's excellent. I hope he's still in consideration for the next seat that opened up, because we do think there's going to be more coming up even in this first term. But I think that really the president was looking at who is simply the best. And honestly, looking at Gorsuch's record, I didn't know it as well. Even I clerked for the same appellate judge as him, and I'd met him. But when I was starting to look at his record, I'm going, oh my gosh, this guy I think is another Bill Pryor. He really is exceptional. So I don't think it was a matter of let's dodge a fight, because we know this president has not dodged fights. Look at his cabinet appointments. He's going right in there and playing hardball with the best of them. So I don't think it was dodging. I think it was just this is the guy he thinks is really the best for the spot.
Carrie Severino, thank you so much for your input on this, and we'll be looking forward to seeing your commercials. Everyone go to confirmgorsuch.com. Confirmgorsuch.com.
That's all I got to say.
Look at that moon. It's a new moon.
All right.
Yeah, something's wrong with her. I agree. I honestly, I question her sanity at this point. The moon, look at the moon. Tell him you're Muslim. Tell him you're Muslim. And then the Congressman Carson says, as a Muslim American, I wish you could hear that when she said, I'm not sure you can hear it in the video, but people are tweeting it around and they're sending the scroll over what she's saying. Somehow someone picked it up on a microphone. I don't know how they heard it. Maybe someone's lip reading her. I appreciate the call, Gail. 855-40-LAURA. All right, why are we playing Cool for Cat? Okay, I'll tell you why. This is when you really begin to question the tenacity of the new generation. And are we going to have, strong kids and can-do kids, or are we going to have pampered bubble wrap kids? Kids in bubble wrap. They're worried about them falling. Everyone wears a helmet when they walk out the door. Okay, check this out. Ollie the bobcat is still missing from the Smithsonian's National Zoo. In a news release, the zoo said it's received tips from neighbors that suggest the 25-pound cat may be in the Woodley Park or Cleveland Park neighborhoods of Northwest D.C.
I thought I saw a putty cat.
It deployed a search party that includes zookeepers, zoo cops, and members of the D.C. Humane Rescue Alliance. While Ollie is at large, 13 D.C. public schools have gone on alert status. Do you know how scared bobcats are of people? It is rare to see a bobcat in the wild because bobcats are terrified of people. They're not mountain lions seeking to take you down on an open trail. This thing looks like my babysitter's kitten who she brought over the other day. I'm going to send this out. Oh, I think I actually tweeted it out yesterday. This is why you have to follow me on Twitter. 13 public schools are on alert status. In an abundance of caution, the D.C. Public Schools has explicitly suspended outside play. Until further notice, said this deal principal James Albright. He told parents in an email that describes Ollie as pretty entrepreneurial. The National Zoo is on the edge of our school zone, and Ollie is still not found. Mommy. This stands until further notice is issued. Do not approach Ollie if you see her, the Washingtonian magazine writes. Bobcats, quote, are not known to be aggressive to humans, the zoo says, and pose no danger. But still, if you see Ollie, take notes on where and when, and then they give the phone number to call. Oh, the zoo also offered more details on Ollie's escape. She likely climbed through a small opening in the mesh net that encloses her habitat. Duh. The industrial-grade mesh measured 2 inches by 2 inches during an inspection yesterday. Zookeepers noticed that one piece of the mesh was broken, forming a larger hole, approximately 5 inches by 5 inches. Ollie is an adept climber and would have been able to climb and crawl through this hole. For more about the species, read the bobcat section of the zoo's website. Washingtonian has skimmed that section of the zoo's website and can confirm it is very informative. Now, we're canceling outside activities because of a 25-pound kitty cat. First of all, I would do anything to be able to hold a bobcat kitten. Do you call them bob kittens? They are the cutest. Oh my God. Every time there's a sighting on a ski slope of a lone bobcat, because they're endangered. They're endangered in a lot of parts of the United States. My friend in Connecticut, who lives in Marlborough, Connecticut, has like 9 acres and very wooded, saw a mother bobcat and 3 kittens walk across her lawn in the fall. Said it was one of the most beautiful things, but those things run fast. They want no part of human beings. I bring this up only to say we have got to get a handle on how just overly concerned we are about everything, every little thing. And is it the lawyers? They're worried about some kids' parents, suing the school if the kid thinks he sees a bobcat and runs and falls and scrapes his knee. I mean, I saw that and I said, you have got to. First of all, I would welcome the bobcat in my backyard. I would absolutely. Oh my God, my dogs. By the way, I ordered 3 books for my kids. You know those old books, Meet Abraham Lincoln? They were written in like 1962. I don't like my kids reading most books that were printed after 1960 because most of them are just claptrap. My dogs eat the mail every day. I've got to do something else with the mail slot because Jimmy rips apart everything I get from Amazon. So I have to order all new books now. You can't send them back once they have dog teeth marks in them. It's just, you know what I'm stuck on? 500,000 illegal immigrants in Manhattan. Oh my, think about that. That's why I always say when people say, there are 11 million undocumented. Oh, please. There's at least 20 million illegal aliens here. I keep tweeting out the provision, by the way, of 8 U.S.C. Section 1182F, which I went back and read the entire U.S. Code section about admissible and inadmissible aliens. And this is why you have to follow me on Twitter. You know, I hit 1.3 million yesterday. Got to get up to 2 million. 1.3, come on. I'm going to beat Trump's number as if. So you read the section and it clearly gives the president plenary power to institute a temporary pause of immigration admissibility for the national interest. There is no ambiguity in the statute. There is no wiggle room in the statute. If the president determines, as the nation's chief executive officer and chief law enforcement officer, he's both, if he determines that allowing people in of any class, by the way, if you wanted to discriminate on the basis of religious class or any other type of class, national origin, you can do that under the statute. It's allowed. Why? National security, the national interest. So you have to remember that, first of all. But for de Blasio to come out and say, well, no, this is just about safety, then why don't we just have no border? If having the country safe depends on having a lot of illegal immigrants in the country who get to run around carte blanche and get ID cards and get to work and get all the benefits of being in this, then why just have no border at all? Because the country will just keep getting safer and safer and safer. But then he claimed to say that he was against the bad dudes being in the country, right? But so we're for getting rid of the people who have committed serious crimes, but not the people who committed the more minor offenses.
If you steal a loaf of bread or you have a small amount of marijuana, I'm not going to see, from my point of view, a family torn apart or someone deported over that, or the family's only breadwinner sent back to their home nation. That's not good for anyone. That leaves a bunch of kids here with no one. But if you commit a serious or a violent crime, we will fully, by our law in New York City, will fully cooperate with ICE.
Yeah, that was a butt monkey. Oh, I'm in favor of deporting murderers, but anyone who smoked dope. What was the other thing? Smoke dope or DWI or DUI and kill people. How many times have we brought stories to you over the past 10 years of DUIs by illegal immigrants? Texas, Arizona, California. One of the chief detectives in L.A. County, remember he buttonholed me at one of the events I did in Glendale when I used to be on KRLA there. We did a big theater event, huge crowd, and he came up to me afterward. He said, "Why don't you guys hit this DUI issue? We have so many hit and runs by illegal aliens, and we have so many DUIs. This is an epidemic," he said. An epidemic in California. And I know for a fact, the police chiefs that we've discussed this with in Tucson, in Phoenix, Reno, Nevada, in Houston, the officials we've spoken to in San Antonio, there is an epidemic of illegal aliens driving drunk and hit and runs. And I'm not saying American citizens don't of course they do. We just don't need any more. I'm not saying they have a predisposition to do this, but I'm saying any American citizen or anyone legally here who is harmed, injured, obviously killed, brutalized because the federal government doesn't do its job or because mayors like de Blasio are shielding and indeed laying out the welcome mat for illegal immigrants, these people should be run out of office. So I always ask this question: how many Americans have to die or be harmed or have their property damaged or lose children or have children abused, like that horrible story we brought you from Texas 2 weeks ago, horrible child abuse? How many Americans have to be brutalized before we actually enforce our laws? And by the way, we have a great guest in the studio today who's going to be with me for at least the next hour. Matt Krause, he's so generous. He was one of our great philanthropists for our partners, Food for the Poor. And Matt is graduated from San Diego Christian College. He's a terrific human being. It's his third term in the Texas state legislature, so he knows a lot of my friends in Texas. And he and a couple of other people from Texas just stepped up and really were great donors to Food for the Poor. They do God's work for the most desperate people in our region, 17 different countries. And we're just so happy that you're here, Matt. And
thanks, Laura.
Yeah. And am I overstating this problem in Texas? I mean, look, other than New York, I spend the most time in Texas, and but without a doubt, I'm in Texas all the time. So I hear this from people, Democrats. I hear it from Republicans. I hear it from officials, and yet the media they really don't want to report on this. And they're not required to report on this because to do so would be like, oh, you're xenophobic. We're just like, we just want the facts.
Right. No, you're exactly right. In fact, Governor Abbott gave his State of the State address yesterday to our legislature, and one of his emergency items was ending sanctuary cities. Our Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has made that one of his key priorities. So it really is a bipartisan effort. You hear a lot of talking points on it, but it has gotten to a critical mass where people said, we want to be safe, we want to be protected, and that's what we need to be focusing on.
And Hispanic landowners in Texas, I've heard this from as well. They've come on our show, guests, ranchers, so forth. They're second and third generation Texans.
That's right.
And they're like, okay, so we're Mexican Americans. We love this country. We don't like what's happening.
That's right.
And they legal immigration, fine, but this is a cartel problem. It's a human trafficking problem, and it's for a lot of people who want cheap labor slave labor, basically paying them nothing, coming into this country and oftentimes doing harm, sadly, to other Americans.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest objections I hear is from the Mexican Americans who've come through the immigration process the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And they get so fed up and frustrated that these people are skirting the issue, skirting the law, and they need to go through the same process we did. It took me time, it took me money, it took me effort. They should have to play by the same rules that we do.
What's the breakdown in the Texas legislature now? Obviously, Dan and Governor Abbott are old friends of mine, so I know them well. They're fantastic. So, what's the breakdown now?
That's right. We have 31 senators, 20 are Republican, 11 are Democrat, and then we have 150 legislators, 95 are Republican, 55 are Democrat.
So Republicans have a clear edge. Is that edge imperiled in any way because of the mass migration of Californians coming into the state and, frankly, immigration changing the makeup of the state? Is that something you're concerned about or worried about? Obviously, Austin is way off the reservation.
Trump
Always
kept talking about building a wall. I said, let's build it. Let's just build it to the north. We don't want certain people coming in. And they just released a study showing most of the people leaving, coming into Texas came from California. That's where they're migrating to. And we want to tell them, hey, there's a reason you left your state because there's no jobs. There's an overburdensome regulations. You can't pursue the American dream like you want to. Come to Texas, get your jobs, fulfill your happiness, but don't bring your policies that ruin California with you.
Oh, my gosh. This showdown that we're seeing, Matt, between Abbott and the Austin sheriff with the sanctuary city status, and the Austin mayor, I believe, is in on it as well. And Abbott's like, okay, well, game on.
That's right. And that's really the only way you have to work with these people. Cut their funding, cut their livelihood. That's the only thing that really makes a difference to them or resonates with them. So I'm glad to see that as brazen as they're being, our governor so far is pushing right back
now,
at them.
You're a young kid. I mean, look at you. Like, you could be one of my producers. I mean, you're young to be in the legislature. It's incredible.
Well, thanks.
3 terms.
When I got into the legislature, we had 3 kids.
Can you get an ID from him? I want to actually make sure this is not an imposter. Like, you're like 22.
Yeah. Well, you start having kids and you start thinking, I want to make sure Texas is the greatest state to grow up in that I was in. This nation, Obama got elected in 2008 saying, I want to fundamentally transform the country. I happen to like that. If I told my wife I wanted to fundamentally transform her, I'd be sleeping on the couch for 3 weeks. Because if you love something, you don't want to fundamentally transform it. So I started seeing what we had and what we gained slipping away.
You're a lawyer too, as well.
That's right.
Okay.
So
you still practice?
I don't practice right now, but my background is constitutional law.
Oh, cool. So, fantastic. Yeah. You went to Liberty, didn't you?
I did. Okay. I was part of the inaugural class that graduated there in 2007.
Wow.
So yeah, it was great.
Jerry Falwell Jr. is a really good friend of mine.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
We're always texting back and forth on various political issues and so forth. He's a terrific guy.
He is.
He wants me to come speak to the kids at Liberty. I got to do that.
You got to do it. It's a huge platform.
Yeah, he wants
to love you.
When my book is out, I think I'll come. But I just got to write a book. You know, a research assistant who can help me. Yeah. No cut and paste, though. I want a little research help. I can write it myself.
That's right. You get in trouble with that.
We got a lot of people on the line and want to chime in. We had a town hall meeting yesterday, Matt, and I'll torture you with this because I know you missed it. We'll take a break, though. I don't think we should get into it until we take a break. Okay, we'll get to your calls. What do you think states and Republican governors should do to work with the Trump administration on these sanctuary cities? There's a big showdown coming. We have legal battles brewing. San Francisco is suing the federal government on the sanctuary city executive order. We're going to stop funding the sanctuary cities. This is going to be a lot of litigation over the next 4 years. You're going to have petitions filed against every executive order that's controversial, which are probably most of them for the Democrats. So we'll take a break. We'll get to all your calls. 855-40-LAURA. Don't go away. 855-40-LAURA. That's my idea. Nancy Pelosi was at this CNN town hall with Jake Tapper. Are they trying to lose their audience at CNN? This is CNN. Are they? I mean, honestly, are they just trying to drive people away from the television set? But nevertheless, Dr. Mike Vickers who I think has been on our show a variety of times, but he is someone who owns land right near the border. He's a veterinarian. A veterinarian or a veteran? Veterinarian, because you wrote vet, so this could be 2 meanings, Drew. Anyway, so he talked about life near the border.
Congresswoman Pelosi, we witnessed the depravity of man in Brooks County, Texas. We find children as young as 2 years of age that are left behind. One child, 11 or 12 years old, was left behind by the cartel smugglers and was so weak trying to keep up, he couldn't climb over a gate, and that's where he died. I have pictures of him.
Oh, it's hard. I mean, I think you make this very strong argument that the people who are truly heartless here are those who really have no problem in letting the situation continue as it is, because people are lured to cross the border because they know they can, and they know they can stay here. And they endanger their lives, they endanger their children's lives. They make life difficult for those who live along the border, ranch owners, other property owners. He continued.
We encounter pregnant women that are left behind. And on one incident, one collapsed from heat stroke, and we were able to revive her and get her to the hospital. We find a lot of women that are left behind. A lot of women leave the groups to avoid sexual assault. Yeah. And we have a lot of women that we save that have been sexually assaulted.
But Nancy's really pro-women, right, at this point?
Imagine this situation. You go to the grocery store, you come home, you live out on a ranch, you pull up into your, up in front of the house, and in the yard your dogs are playing with something that looks like a ball. But upon further investigation, you find out it's actually a human head, a skull, with still brain matter in it, a woman's skull. We found her body 150 yards from our back door a short time later the next day. She had a broken ankle.
That was devastating. Pelosi really had no response to that. Those are facts. He laid that out, Mr. Vickers, Dr. Mike Vickers. He laid that out factually. Now, I have to give CNN credit because you usually don't hear this stuff on cable news at all. Very little. Or it's in real tiny little snippets. But that was so compelling. Pelosi couldn't really respond to that. And again, there is a human toll to an open border that stems from an open border. And it's not just American suffering. We know it's people from other countries suffering. We don't want people from other countries suffering. We don't wish that upon anyone. No mother wants to see a child suffer because of this. But we have a lot of suffering in the United States right now. All you have to do is look at what happens week after week in a place like Chicago or Baltimore or South Central LA. And we have to focus on that as well. And Matt, I think like you're probably not surprised to hear these stories because you live in Texas, and but like people in the rest of the country, they kind of tuned this out, but that was pretty compelling.
That's right, and it's good to see Republicans, conservatives going with narratives and stories because that's what really moves the needle, and that's what people really do. And so long we've used facts and figures and charts, but that's not going to move the needle. What Mr. Vickers just said, that will, and people understand that's the havoc that this uncertainty and this lack of ability by the federal government to secure our borders, this is what it's coming to.
When we come back, we'll get to your calls on this. The Neil Gorsuch nomination to the Supreme Court of the United States is a real shot in the arm for those of us who have been so concerned about the direction of the Supreme Court. We'll talk more about that. And then Pelosi hit by a mother's devastatingly sad story about what happened to her son at the hands of an illegal immigrant. What did Nancy say to that? We'll tell you when we come back. 855-40-LAURA. A lot to get to on the Laura Ingraham Show. Of course, that's Neil Gorsuch, beautifully stated. A judge who is happy with every outcome of a case that he's involved with, that he voted on, the majority, is not a good judge. Is a judge who's acting politically, not a judge who's acting within the constitutional separation of powers. You are not a legislator. You're not a senator or a congressman. You are a judge supposed to call balls and strikes. And that was a great statement. I'm so glad he said that. And the way he said it is very easy to understand for the lay folks out there who did not go to law school or maybe not mired in the legalese. We'll go to all your calls, 855-40-LAURA. We have a special guest in the studio, a state legislator in the great state of Texas, Matt Krause. Matt's folks were so kind to be a $10,000, even more than $10,000 donor to Food for the Poor, which is just one of the greatest philanthropic organizations out there. I think 95% of the money of Food for the Poor, now 95% goes directly to the poor in programs that sustain them, that help them grow their food better, entrepreneurial programs. I've seen it firsthand. Otherwise, I wouldn't tell you it's a great organization. I've been with them. I went out for a week with them. I'm going on another trip with them later this year after I finish my book. So I can't wait. It's a great organization. So Matt, thanks again for being here and for doing what you're doing. And I know Texas You know, a lot of Texans, of course, were for Ted Cruz, and Cruz won Texas, the Texas primary, as we imagined he would. But Ted Cruz yesterday said this was a phenomenal pick. He was so happy about this nomination.
That's right. And in fact, a year ago today, I was in Iowa with Senator Cruz, helping him win that caucus. I was a big Ted Cruz supporter, and you're right. He's as ecstatic about the pick as most of us are. And Donald Trump hit a home run with his first pick.
I think Judge Gorsuch is a home run. I am very, very happy. During the campaign, President Trump promised the American people if he was elected, he would nominate a principled constitutionalist to replace Justice Scalia. And tonight, President Trump kept his word. He honored that commitment. Tonight was a big, big deal.
I could be mean and play the sound bites from the debates when Ted Cruz doubted whether Trump would actually pick a good, but I'm not going to do that. But I had to mention it. What is wrong with me that I had to mention that? You know why I had to. I also tweeted out something about the Never Trumpers today. You know why I did? For the same reason Hannity mentioned it last night on the show I was on, his Hannity show last night. Because if it weren't for the Warriors for victory over the last 18 months, if we didn't stand day after day after day against the Never Trumpers, we would have had Hillary selecting 3 justices for the Supreme Court. We would have had Merrick Garland on the court, and we would have had at least 2 more, possibly 3 justices. And we kept saying, I know you might not like everything about Trump, but he will put great people on the court. I knew he would because I asked him if he would. And I believed him when he answered the question. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. It's like, we're going to put a judicial conservative on this court. He's going to be an originalist, a textualist, and we're going to do the right thing. I didn't doubt for a second that he was going to put someone great for his first selection on the court. But the Never Trumpers were willing to give that all away out of standing on their high horse. The perfect is the enemy of the good, and everyone knows how much I like Ted Cruz. So I'm glad he said that. That was very classy of him, and it was correct. I mean, he knows the court better than anyone. So I'm glad he said that the way he said it. All right, let's go. I got to go to some of the calls. All right, Matt, you can answer the calls with me. Let's go to Greg on line 5 in beautiful Trumpland, Ohio. Greg, go ahead.
Yep. Hi, Laura. I just got to tell you, you have the best bumper music. I swear, it's so entertaining.
Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know that in Southern Ohio, there are still Trump signs in the front of people's yards.
Oh, I love it. They haven't
it's
taken
like
them
yard
down.
art here.
Oh.
No, some of them haven't. But I just wanted to say, I sat there so prideful last night watching that, because in our country, and I'm a veteran, and our votes do count. Our votes do count. When you go and you vote and somebody says it doesn't count, last night our vote counted, because we, people who went and voted for Donald Trump, ensured a future for the kids and our future generations with this court. And I think that's lost in this whole schmear, I call it, of animus. And so I just thought I felt
it's an excellent point
to call
but I would say one thing, Greg, I take issue with one thing you said. And this is
what's that?
This is, I hate to say it this way, but you weren't prideful. You were proud. Prideful is vanity. Mm-hmm. You were not exhibiting vanity. You were proud of what you saw last night. This is what I do with my kids. Do I have to be Conan the Grammarian? The answer is yes. That's just who I am. But Greg, I love the call. I'm just teasing you. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. And I think we have to think about it that way. This affects our kids, our grandkids, their lives, the Second Amendment. Hillary's picks for the court were going to gut that Second Amendment. All the restrictions on gun ownership would have been deemed constitutional under the Second Amendment. They would have done away with that Heller decision. The Voting Rights Act stuff that they would have done as well. They would have mandated under the Constitution a equal protection right for internet voting. I'm telling you, all this stuff would have been either due process or it would have been substantive due process. It would have all been read into the Constitution under these activist judges that Hillary would have put on the bench. And the Constitution, as we understand it today, would have not been that Constitution 4 years from now. And so that's right. Good stuff. That's really good stuff. Were there any Texas judges on that list?
There was Don Willett.
Oh,
the Texas
Willett,
Supreme
that's
Court
right.
Justice, who was my number one pick.
Of course.
He's outstanding and phenomenal.
The Lone Star people stick together. You guys just stick together. I don't blame you for sticking together, but But how are those Texas A&M or UT teams this year?
I don't know. You
Where's
don't hear
my
much
phone?
from them lately. So.
I'm Alabama. At least we made it to the national championship. I didn't go to Alabama, but I'm an Alabama fan. Let's go to Linda, Maryland, on line 6. Linda, go ahead, my friend.
Hi. I just wanted to say I was very, very angry. I don't know, and I wonder how many people are as angry as I am at how the Democrats have been reacting to all the good things that Donald Trump has been trying to do. I mean, do you think everyone's really angry?
You sound really happy. No, you don't sound all that angry, but you're very...
I do?
You must have had a lot of coffee today. You're like, woo, I'm angry.
That's because I'm talking... That's because I'm talking to you.
No, I'm your friend.
No,
you don't have to... you can talk to me like you talk to your neighbor, preferably a neighbor you like.
Okay.
But, hey,
I'll
anyway,
say... I wanted to tell you... I wanted to tell Chuck Schumer what I thought of him. And I called his Washington office, and I called about 7 times over an hour, and I got a busy signal. Constantly.
What a beautiful, wonderful thing.
You got a wait. You got a busy signal, and then you got a pre-recorded thing. What happened there?
Well, okay. So what I did was I actually wrote him a letter, which I put in the mail. That was on Monday.
You didn't cut out like letters from a magazine, right? Did you? And like glue them to a piece of paper?
No, I wrote him an actual. I mean, I actually, on my computer, I actually.
Okay, because sometimes the handwritten ones scare people. But go ahead.
And so anyway, I tried calling his Washington office again this morning. Line was still busy. So I called his New York office.
Yeah.
And it got a recording. I got a recording. And this is the recording. Hi, this is Chuck Schumer. Thanks very much for calling. All of our lines are busy at the moment. See if you... so if you'd please call back in a little while, we'll be eager to take your call.
Oh yeah, lie of the day. Call back in an hour, and we'll hang up on you when we hear that you're calling from outside of New York. I appreciate it. Let's go to John, line 1 in New York. John, go ahead.
Hey, Laura, you could probably articulate this better, but Trump, you know how he brands everything? He should brand the Democratic Party as anti-American and specifically target the black community and say, go to like Detroit, film these houses in these poor conditions and say, this Democratic Party cares about Syrians, illegal immigrants, all other immigrants before their own people.
I think that's an interesting point, and I think that you will see the Trump team take him in to the inner city. I think he'll do that. Right now, I think they're concerned about some of these protests. I shouldn't say they're. I would imagine they're concerned. They don't want to see any violence in the streets. They don't, and I think there are some on the left who want to stoke violence. Matt, you know where I'm going on this, right?
Absolutely.
That they want to create an incident where the police go too far. I say they, I mean the real far left, the anarchist types that have woven their way into these protests. A lot of these are paid protesters. A lot of these people have all the signs. They're all written in the same handwriting. Do you notice that? They're all the same handwriting.
I hadn't noticed that.
They're so organic. They're all the same handwriting. They're made in like George Soros's warehouse somewhere, I'm sure. But I think that there are some who hope to take this up like 3 notches and make it look like Trump's causing the chaos when in fact he's just doing what he campaigned on.
That's right. Well, and honestly, I think the Democrats are overplaying their hand. If you have sustained outrage for so long, the public can only take so much. So for the 12, 13 days he's been in office, the Democrats have been yelling about something every day. Pretty soon they're going to start tuning them out. And if they try to hold up Gorsuch's nomination, I think they're really going to.
I beg them to try to do that. I have no problem with they're trying to do that because it'll look terrible for them. Tony in Alabama. Line 4, of course, a lot of us were hoping for Bill Pryor from Alabama, who would have been a phenomenal pick. And not trying to take anything away from Neil Gorsuch, but Pryor has been just a total stud when it comes to originalism, and he's just another great judge. It would have been great, maybe in the future. Tony, go ahead.
Hi, Laura. You're probably going to really kill me on my grammar, being from Alabama.
No, but, okay, that's a stereotype. That's really. How many teeth do you have? No, I'm totally kidding.
I have a couple of questions for you. I know you don't have much time, and you have a state legislature there, which is great. Kind of a good question. How is it that a state can put a law into effect like California with the marijuana, with medicinal marijuana, and they have growers, and that's against federal law, and then the feds can go in and they go after the growers and they prosecute them through a federal court, but it's legal in California. I mean, how can they
it's a
pass
clash.
these laws that are...
Right. Well, they really can't, but they can when no one challenges them. So when you have a federal government, when you had under Obama, and a Justice Department led by both Eric Holder and then Loretta Lynch, who just made a decision. They made a prosecutorial decision that they would exercise their, quote, discretion to enforce certain laws and not enforce other laws. So we saw it with marijuana. It's a federal crime to use and sell marijuana. It's federally prohibited. They don't care. Federal crime to cross the border illegally. Not a felony, but it's still a violation of our federal immigration law. They just decide in some cases they'll enforce it, in other cases they won't. And they were about to give work permits. They tried to give work permits to millions of legal immigrants by executive order. Court slapped them down on that. Can't do that. So this is going to be an epic battle in the courts over this federal versus state charge on the issue of immigration and other issues as well. I'm curious to see where Trump goes on the drug legalization. I think that's another loser. Follow the money on the drug legalization. A lot of people are going to become billionaires on that.
That's right. And it's a way for the states to test the federal government, right? The Supreme Court had a decision in 1987 saying the federal government can't compel state governments to enforce their laws for them. And so this is a way to see, are you going to enforce it? Are you going to use your time, energy, and resources to do that? Or can we thumb our nose at you?
Yeah, I think that the federal law preempts state law on key issues. Not all, because I believe in states' rights, of course, in the 10th Amendment. But on the issues of federal drug enforcement and on immigration. Now, they batted down some of the stuff that Arizona did in that SB 1070 law, saying that was a federal preemption. Well, okay, then why can states continue to defy federal law on the issue of sanctuary cities, shielding illegal aliens from deportation, and not even notice that you're holding an illegal immigrant? We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. We'll close out this hour. Don't go away. I was on Special Report last night before the nomination was announced and on Hannity Live. If you missed those appearances, you can go to our Facebook page or lauraingraham.com. Matt Krause has to go and fly away back to Austin. Will you take me out, you and your friends and your wife, and take me out somewhere in Austin next time I'm in town?
Absolutely.
Please?
Let us know.
Oh, my gosh. Broken Spoke. Got to go to all the classic venues, right? Matt, thank you so much for being here. Please keep in touch with us about all the developments that are happening in Texas.
We will.
We expect a big future from you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.